Hello, my name is Ernie Romero and I'm running for Santa Fe County Assessor. And today we're talking about value, in particular commercial values with Ernie Romero, President of Phase 1 Realty. Hello Ernie, how are you today?
Hi Isaiah, how are you doing?
Good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Isaiah, I have kind of a funny past. I was born here, and yesterday I turned 67.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. And so I went to school here, St. Anne's Elementary, which is no longer around, St. Mike's High School, which obviously has been here for 150 years. And then I went away to college at Regis, it's called Regis University now, but it was Regis College then with the Jesuits. And I was recruited to work in a lot of different places, but I purposely said, no, I'm going to go back to Santa Fe. And so I became a CPA very quickly, opened up a CPA office and did that for about 10 years. But, not so quickly because I did it for 10 years, but I determined that wasn't the line of business that I wanted to be in. And so probably around 1988 or so, I got into the real estate business full time. First as a commercial broker. Did that for a couple of years, did some of the larger brokerage deals here, like it's called the old Walmart now.
Yes.
It was the new Walmart then.
Yeah, I remember that.
The new Walmart that located down from Sirius Road. Sam's Club I did. I did the Tierra Contenta deal with what was then First Interstate Bank out of Denver. But after a few years, I also started dabbling in real estate on my own account. And so probably for 30 years or so, I've been in mostly buying real estate, and then leasing it, managing it, reselling it when the time is right.
Yeah.
But really in it for the long run, play the long game. We have a portfolio of probably 30 to 40 properties now. Wow. Some of it being land, some of it being industrial, a little bit of office, and some retail.
So talking about those different sectors, what did you see, what did you experience last year in 2021 as far as valuation for those different sectors?
Well, I wasn't so concerned about valuation as much as when you're in the business, you're more concerned about the day-to-day. And what I saw day-to-day was a lot of small tenants that were really struggling.
Oh, wow.
And they were struggling because of the shutdowns primarily. And with COVID, there was a lot of concern on a lot of people's part not to be out and about. Mm-hmm. And spending and consumer spending is kind of the lifeblood of an economy. So a lot of our tenants were hurting, and so we stepped up and we did our part. Mm-hmm. We accommodated virtually everyone that needed help, and gave them anything from rent on the back end to all the way to no rent. Mm-hmm. And some of those we went with no rent for 6 months. Wow. But we didn't want to put anybody out of business. Mm-hmm. The rent is one factor, but rent is really somewhere between 5 and 10% of a business's spending, and so we just felt like we could do our part, help them out that way, and then they could address the other parts of their business. So more than anything, back in 20 and 21, we saw a lot of small businesses hurting. Mm-hmm. That needed to get through this pandemic. As far as valuation goes, we should be more sophisticated and talk about IRRs and FMRRs and so forth. We just don't do that. Mm-hmm. We look at a property and hopefully try to find its intrinsic value, its location, and we certainly take a look at what the market is versus what a property is doing. Mm-hmm. Want to make sure that we're somewhere within market range. But then we acquire it, and it doesn't really matter if the income will go down for a while. We just know that if it's well located and has good fundamentals to it, that it'll do okay, and that's worked out well for us.
So if I hear you right, some of the sectors. Let's talk about office. So, office. Did you experience some vacancy, or did you're able to give them 6 months of
Right.
not being able to pay their rent? Or?
Well, luckily enough, we don't have a lot of office because I think that's probably the sector that was hit pretty hard. And it's the sector that's actually going to continue to suffer, because I think one thing this whole pandemic has proven to a lot of businesses is that they don't necessarily need to be located in so much office space. That there's a lot of jobs out there that can function pretty well located out of their home, or located in some co-working environment. So office, I have to say we were lucky that we didn't own a lot of it. But I would say that would be the area of real estate that I'd be most concerned with.
Okay. Opposed to retail, where you feel retail starting to come back a little bit? Or?
Well, retail I think is coming back, as long as you're dealing with essential goods. We also have properties in other markets, in other small markets. And so we were hit with a couple of corporate-wide bankruptcies.
Oh, wow.
The Bell's department store.
That, yeah.
And I think it was Route 21. Route 21 went through a Chapter 11 reorganization. And so we were hit with both of those bankruptcies, one being a Chapter 11, one being a Chapter 7, where we were left with big holes in our shopping centers that we needed to refill, which is pretty tough because retail, I think, is really susceptible these days to online shopping.
Yeah. The brick and mortar is is struggling because of that.
Right.
People are stating.
Right.
How about industrial? Do you have quite a bit of industrial properties in Huntington Square?
Yeah, if we have one type of property that we like better than all, it's industrial.
Yeah.
And really we have properties that are catering to smaller businesses. And so it's industrial, but it's also their office, and it's their headquarters. But everybody needs to make a living, and when you're in need of some industrial space, everybody needs a yard, and everybody needs a small warehouse, and so we do like that part of it. And nationally, statewide and nationally, industrial is a very strong sector.
You were stating that you have some vacant land. Have you received some phone calls for that vacant land, or is that kind of?
Yeah, vacant land is a little tricky. Okay, you have to go into it knowing that it can be a long-term hold, because someone takes vacant land, they also have to go through the whole development process. And then when you get through the regulatory process of development, then you have to go through the physical process of development. And that whole process has become very time consuming and very expensive. Then when you start building buildings, the cost of materials, the cost of labor, and everything else has gone up significantly. So it's hard to develop land, build buildings, and try to compete in a market.
Okay. So thinking about 2022 now, what do you believe will be the sectors that will be the winners coming in 2022? What do you think will do well coming now into 2022?
Well, I think if you look at the macro level, and the macro level I would say is Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Okay. Santa Fe, because the development process and the regulatory process is so difficult, there is more demand than there is supply, and it's very difficult to work through the regulatory process and take care of the supply side. So, if you have existing properties, I believe that they're probably getting filled up. Okay. And you haven't had the rent growth that you would hope and expect in a market like this where the supply is limited, but it's inching up slowly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next question I have for you is, I know there's a lot of baby boomers out there. Some are wanting to move some of their money from stocks, or they've been sitting on some money. What would you say to those investors that want to invest into commercial real estate?
Yeah, I would say that, the grass is always greener on the other side. If you're not in the trenches in commercial real estate, I would suggest that it's pretty tough to get into it and be successful on a one-off basis. So if you want to get into commercial real estate, I would suggest maybe getting involved with someone who is in that business and who does it on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. So speak to agents such as yourself, and
right.
You guys have the data ready for them, and this is what this area is doing, this is how it's performing, this is what you can expect as far as return, things of that nature.
Yeah, and I don't see that many speculators in the Santa Fe market. Okay. There's a lot of outside money that wants to park money here, but I think those opportunities are few and far between. The residential market is sky high right now. The rents, although they've gotten very expensive, they can't give you the kind of returns that you would expect. The commercial market is so tight and held by, I would say not that many companies, that it's tough to tap into that market as well. I don't know of many owners that are in the sell mode these days.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Understood. All right, Ernie. Well, that's all the questions we had for you. Thank you for meeting with us. I appreciate it. And have a wonderful day.
Well, let me give you a little kudo here.
Okay.
I've dealt in this market for over 30 years, actually 45 years in business. And the assessor's office has always been approachable. And they're approachable, and they're smart enough to understand data. And so I have to say that for the last 10 years or so, or maybe even more, it's been a real pleasure dealing with the assessor's office.